Welcome to Green Carpet Interviews. Let's get into the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Green Carpet Interview. Today, we have a very special guest on, which I'm excited about. Her name is Stephanie Dreyer. She is a vegan meal prep expert, and her company is Batch Cooking Club. So I'm sure she's going to talk a lot about this, but yeah, this is our guest, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I believe she also has over 20 years of marketing experience working for
Wow.
different companies. It's amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be great. How's everything going with you?
Going good. I'm excited. I've seen a few of videos that Stephanie's done, and she really has a very bubbly, beautiful way about her. So I'm really excited to get to meet her and hear what she has to say. So
Yeah.
it's great.
All right, I guess without further ado, let's bring on Stephanie now. And here she is. Oh, there she is.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm
Well,
so
we're
glad.
excited to
so
have you here
awesome.
too. You're doing us the honor. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
so for those of our audience who don't know who you are, mind just giving us a brief, description?
Yeah. Well, hi everyone. So excited to be here. As I said, I'm Stephanie Dreyer. I'm a plant-based meal planning expert. I specialize in families with mixed dietary needs because I'm a vegan in a non-vegan family for now 13 years, and but didn't grow up vegan at all. Didn't go vegan until until my late actually early 30s, so you can do the math and figure out how old I am. And my background actually, I started in an online platform about 7 or so years ago, maybe a little bit more. No, actually now more because I've been vegan almost 14 years. So about 10 years ago, just trying to connect with people and share my journey about being vegan because I was the only vegan in my social circle at the time. Actually, kind of still am in my family and community, and was just looking for a way to connect. And I've always loved to cook. I've always been a self-taught cook. And feeding my family healthy homemade meals has always been really important. And I struggled a lot to find that that how to do that once I became vegan. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get into that more. But long story short, it led me to create this online platform. I have 2 children's picture books. I've always been a writer, so that was kind of a fun, unexpected thing that I did along this journey. And I started a plant-based meal prep membership called Batch Cooking Club. So I'm the founder of that. We've been around for about 3 years now. And I deliver basically prep plans and recipes every week to busy parents to make dinner easier so that you can sit down to the table more often with your family.
Wow, that's
that's
amazing. That's great. That's amazing.
great.
Totally different concept.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
great.
So you said that you have a mixed family. So plant you as the almost the sole vegan. Then you have vegetarian, and you have meat eaters, and so how how is it? And it's been a struggle, I'm guessing, but how is it?
Yes.
How do you sort of do that? How do you meal prep for multiple people, especially if you've got, because I think, being vegan is not just, a diet, right? It's it's a bit more of a
I'm sure.
lifestyle. It's a bit more
Right.
of um a value based, lifestyle. So how do you how do you balance those two things?
It's such a great question, and it's so much a part of my journey and why I'm here where I am today. So it was a major struggle to because I was basically a short order cook, and when I went vegan, I had a 1 year old, a 4 year old, and a 6.5 year old. So I was like in it, right? And I was working part-time and volunteering and doing all things like any busy parent can identify with, where you're doing all the things. And so I was really a short order cook, trying to do everything, still trying to be the good mom. I'm Jewish. We celebrate Shabbat every Friday. I don't know how much of your audience knows about Shabbat, but for us, it's like a very, I will say I cook every meal every night except for Saturdays is my day off. But Friday, I do like a little extra special meal, I will say. And it was very traditional. We would have the roast chicken and all the vegetables. And it got to the point where I told my husband, I said, I can't cook. I can't touch the chicken. I can't cook the chicken. I'm having like what it was a value thing. It wasn't just about the food. It was about, I can't do this. I mean, and then it was like, can I buy the chicken? And if I buy kosher, is that better? I mean, it was a lot of struggling with myself of like, what are my values? Am I compromising my values? But also I need to honor my family. Like I can't just impose my ideals and beliefs on them, because then what kind of a mother am I? That's not very compassionate. And I'm trying to be a compassion, right? The whole reason for going vegan is compassion. So it's a lot of struggle, down to my couch was leather back then. And it was like, do I throw out the couch? I mean, it was just never ending. Right. And my poor husband, who had to like kind of, this is not the Latina. He jokes. He's like, I married a Catholic Latina woman, and I converted to Judaism, by the way, shortly after I had kids. But he's like, and now where's my meat living, carne asada loving wife, and it's now this completely different person. So I will say there was a definite. I'm not, very transparent. It's not like it was like, oh, rainbows and sunshine and everybody was on board. No, it was hard for several years where I struggled to find my groove, to find my footing, to become comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm living the way I am with integrity, compassion as best as possible. But my family has decided not to go on this journey with me. Well, they're on the journey with me, but they did decided not to convert to veganism immediately. And that's okay. Like I had to come to terms with, I can't judge them. I mean, and it took me a while. You can ask them and my family. Like I was very judgmental at the beginning. I was very, I was incredulous as to why they wouldn't do this with me after hearing and seeing the same information that I was receiving. And I did have to practice compassion and not being judgmental, and all those things those values that drew me to veganism. I had to really ask myself some serious questions and go, wait a minute, are you being as compassionate as you can be with your own family? So anyway, all that to say, it was a struggle. We, it started with coming to some terms with what my ground rules were. Like, what were the things that I needed? What were the things that they needed? And how could we come together? I'm lucky that my husband has been super supportive, and he said, okay, I'll take over making the chicken. And there we have separate dishes and sponges and plates, and for, kind of like a kosher household, but not a kosher household. And we adapted. And I think, that stuff's still happening in my life. I'm very environmentally conscious. And so, like I got rid of paper towels and napkins in my house a couple of years ago, and that caused an uproar. And people were, my family's like, what are you doing? And so to answer your question about how do you do this, it started with setting up ground rules. It started with getting really clear, like doing a lot of soul searching about what my hard no's were and what their hard no's were, and finding that compromise, that common ground. And then when it came to feeding my family, like I said, I was so tired. I was so tired physically, emotionally, spiritually, with cooking a bunch of different meals, and I think any parent can really relate to this. Even if you don't have a mixed dietary family, you've got picky eaters. This one won't eat this thing and that one won't eat. And it's like, oh my goodness. So what I said, there has to be a better way. There's just got to be a better way. So I developed this system where I was, because it was important to me to make a homemade meal, as much as possible. came up with this way of eating. A lot of it is um I have a lot of different meal ideas that you can see all on my website, but it's like plant core meals is the
Mm.
basis of what I came up with. So if I start with a plant core meal and have, let's just say tacos, for example, and I have, the meal at its core is vegan, but maybe there's two fillings, and then you have all the different toppings. Okay, so there's
Ah,
I do the vegan black bean filling, but then there's the chicken filling or whatever that I'm not making. Somebody else in the house who wants that makes, right? Or if you have smaller children, your partner. So my husband took over that. But it started with plant core meal ideas that I was like, okay, what can I start with? Was it a pasta? Is it a, taco? Is it whatever it is where the main filling and the main meal is vegan, but on the side, I can put, for your taco, you can have dairy cheese and non-dairy cheese, for example. And so that's how it kind of started. And then from there, I thought, okay, I'm busy. How can I simplify this even more? And I looked at how I could take components of the meals and prep like maybe 4 to 6 things on a Sunday in like an hour and a
mm,
half, and have my meals, not the whole meal prepped and not all the meals for the week, but just enough so that I could get into the kitchen for a half hour to
ah,
40 minutes every night and finish dinner. And some nights
mm,
might be a soup or a stew that I've prepped on the week and I'm just reheating. Um, and I took it a step further by because I think a lot of the times when we're thinking about how to feed our family, we just think about, oh, when am I making dinner? I need 5 dinners this week. Let me just pick some random recipes. I got very strategic. So I'm a marketing
mm.
strategist by trade, by education and career. But my like special secret sauce, I think, to everything that I bring is my project management. So I'm very strategic with my time and how I organize my time. So I took it a step further and applied that to say, okay, let me look at how much time I have to actually prepare dinner every night so that I could
Mm.
pick recipes that fit that amount of time. So, for example, if, on Wednesday night, we have to eat at, 6 o'clock because I want to eat at 6 o'clock, but I know that I have a meeting up until 5:30 or a carpool, and I'm only going to have like
Mm,
15 minutes to get dinner on the table. I'm not going to put in that really cool lasagna recipe that I've been dying to try because I've got 15 minutes. Instead, I'm going to plug in that really yummy chili that I'm going to make on Sunday so that all I have to do is reheat it and throw together a quick salad. So that's how I started planning to feed my family. And it started working and it was so much easier and I could breathe. And I was like, wow, I have time to like do things again. I started I would post it on my refrigerator and on my counter. Friends would come over and go, "What's this?" And they'd see what I was doing and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." They'd hear I only went to the grocery store once a week. They were like, "What? I go like almost every day." And I started to realize that I was doing something different than other people, that I just was kind of taking for granted that, this was just how I did it. I got started, from there it kind of snowballed into other things we can talk about more, but to answer your question, a very long way to answer your question, that's kind of how it came all about, of how I make it work for when you're vegan and a non-vegan family. That's how I make it work.
Wow, that's great. That's really good. I have there's a lot of questions. How, like what do you feel like the turning point um for you it was where you're like, you know what, I think I'm gonna take maybe this idea of, how do you meal prep for yourself, and then I want to now share this with other people. I want to coach other people and figure out how to get other people to, so when was that turning point for you?
Yeah, so okay, that's a great question. And it's actually that's how I pivoted from just doing this for myself is as I was saying, people's friends and family were like, "Oh, what is that you're doing?" And that's so interesting. And I got this idea, like, hey, I should teach a class on this.
Mm.
So I was like, let me see. Okay. And friends were like, yeah, I would totally do this. So I put together what I was calling prep Sundays, and I could only swing it once a month because I had a full-time job. And I remember like planning. I had a partner at the time. She was a dietitian. So we kind of worked together. So like she kind of did the nutrition side of it. And I put together these, like exactly what we were just talking about, like 5 recipes that you could prepare on Sunday. And then I would explain to them how to turn those into meals later in the week. So it could have been a sauce, and that they were going to turn into a, pasta or casserole, a soup, um, whatever it was, a couple different recipes to put meals together during the week.
Mm.
And I could only fit about 8 people in my kitchen. So I paired them up, and 2 people would work on each recipe. And then and they brought their own containers, their own Tupperware, and then they would leave with, these components of meals and a list of recipes to turn them into dinner the next week. So I did this. I think actually I might have been doing it every other week, I'm thinking, because I did it the first week, and the calls and emails and texts that I got the next week, it was like so rewarding. People were saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so much easier. This is life-changing." They were using words like
Wow.
transformed, life-changing, like just amazing. And these were families who were not necessarily vegan. Some of them were vegan. Some of them had like 1 or 2 vegetarians in them. But I had a couple who weren't vegan at all, just wanted to eat healthier and add some healthy meals to their family's menu. And so first of all, I was so excited to hear that their family was enjoying the food, because you never know, like, you think your food's good, but you don't know. Excuse me. I'm getting a little um and then after that, um it became so the momentum behind it became so like I all I can say is there's this energy that I felt that was like really pushing me, and they're asking me to do it every week. And I'm saying I can't, this like, because I was doing all the shopping, the planning, the recipe development, was a lot. So I thought, there's something here. How can I scale this to reach more people? Oh, because then as I started doing the classes, I started getting dads, because I had mostly moms coming. I had dads who wanted to come with their daughters or with their other kids, because they wanted their teen kids to get in on learning the cooking. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so great. So I did continue. I was teaching some classes at the local community college and whatever. I was trying to do it all, and really just was like, I've got to scale this. So that's when I happened to be working a full time at the time, and then suddenly unexpectedly got let go from my job, and was devastated, because it was like my dream job. It was in the plant-based world, and I thought it was, I was going to be there forever. But it gave me the kind of the little nudge I needed to be like, hey, now you have some time. Let's see what you can do with this. So I gave myself like 3 months, because I'd already was doing, kind of still had this like idea brewing, and turned it into a digital project or a product and a membership. And then I launched it. I decided, okay, I'm gonna go through. And then from there, upon launching, I kind of, to answer your question about how did you figure out you wanted to continue teaching and coaching? It became so rewarding to get the feedback from members, right? Um, that I was like, oh, I really like this. I guess I must be kind of good at this, and people seem to like me, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And from there, it kind of grew with their hearing what their feedback was, what their needs were. I started doing some coaching along with the membership, and doing other types of things that grew out of the membership. So everything that I've done and currently do in my business is very much driven from the feedback I get from the community that I'm serving. And because I am my customer, like I am a vegan, non-vegan in a non-vegan family, living and breathing the way that I teach, I'm doing that at home. I'm a first-hand experiencer of the product, and know, my family has changed, over the last few years. I've got one in college now, and so now I've got one in college, 2 home, and just adjusting and seeing how things change and adapt. It's given me a lot of good perspective to kind of keep up with the times and, be relevant and make sure I'm in touch with what my members need and want as well. So that's kind of how it all came about.
Wow, that's great. It's really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I understand, especially because you're Jewish, and so am I. I also converted.
Oh, I
Yes,
didn't know
and yes,
that.
and so is my partner, and so is Deji's girlfriend as well. And so
Oh, wow. Well, I'm great company.
yes, totally. And so be you talking about meal, and I was thinking that's interesting. I'm not sure if you've thought about maybe the angle of helping Shabbat prep, like Shabbat meal prep, for Shabbat day itself. Is there something that you've thought about, or yeah, that would be kind of interesting, especially for people, especially if they're very orthodox and they don't want to do any cooking,
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. That could be an interesting angle. I'm not sure if you've thought about that. What do you think about that as a possibility?
So I love that idea. And I actually have done my temple I'm really involved in my temple. And my rabbi has been so amazing at like bringing me in to do different things. Like I did something for Passover. I've done something from Rosh Hashanah. Like I've done ideas for like enhancing, your Seder, all these different things. And of course, I bring my plant-based spin, and my rabbi knows that I'm going to do that and is completely supportive of that. And it's actually interesting when my oldest became a bat mitzvah, her Torah portion was the section it was the section of the Torah where it talks about animals and it actually is very aligned with veganism. I know there are all sorts of different parts of the
Totally.
Torah
Yeah.
that have different,
Yeah. Totally.
but so it was actually very interesting because Judaism and veganism are, when you look at the compassion parts, when you look at there's some very strong links there. I mean, I don't want to get too religious and political and all that because I truly respect everybody's, for everyone who's listening and watching. I respect no judgment, or I'm never trying to push an agenda like you have to be vegan and you have to be Jewish, or not at all. I just putting it out there that there are the values are aligned. And for example, we just celebrated Passover, and my whole Seder, I write my own Haggadah, and it was all about like, the celebration of Passover is all about the freedom from slavery, and animals are enslaved, right? We talk about that as vegans. So um I think doing a Shabbat, idea would be great. I'm actually going to be taking over our monthly challah baking, and I'm making a vegan challah. And I wonder if there might be, and you're putting a little spark in we serve challah at Shabbat, and I'm wondering if there's a way to incorporate some kind of uh, vegan Shabbat more education into when I'm doing that monthly challah baking, if people would be interested. So I think I will discuss that with the rabbi. So I thank you for that idea. I love it. I
Absolutely.
love that idea.
Absolutely. And especially in some shows where you have this cooking going on in the background, so you can smell that beautiful, delicious meal wafting into the sanctuary space, because it's coming from social hall somewhere there. But maybe
Yes.
there's a way to even help those who are actually doing that work, to make their lives easier. If there's a way to actually have that, so that there's some prep done ahead to get that much easier for them. But anyway, I was just thinking about that. Yeah. And of course, in our show, we are close to being purely vegan in our show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so,
You're lucky.
Yeah.
Mine is not.
So some vegetarian is allowed occasionally, but generally it's mostly vegan. Yeah. Yeah, I think the question that I have also is, you had mentioned that you have the dietitian that have actually worked with you, at some point when you're putting the meals together. And how do you navigate all the different nutritional needs that people actually have, especially being vegan, the vitamin D and so on? How do you make sure all that is accommodated for, all the proteins and so that's needed to make sure that they have a balanced meal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't work with a dietitian anymore since I started the membership. I always say I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist. You should consult with your medical professional. When I went vegan, I met with a nutritionist and made sure the dietitian that I was getting everything that I needed. And so really, after 13 years of doing this, I have and just studying again, I'm not certified or anything, but just like studying and knowing like what we need as vegans, what we need, people think you need so much protein when, the standard American diet is way over in protein and the portion sizes and all the things. But
Mhm.
what I really just try to do is have balanced meals that are healthy and nutritional. Use as whole foods, as close to a unprocessed. My recipes don't include processed cheeses and meats. That's all optional if you want to include that. So I really try to use whole foods in all of my stuff. And in the platform that I use for the recipes, it does break down. It calculates all the nutritional information for you. And I have a daughter who has disordered eating, so I'm really careful not to tell you how many calories you should eat or what a serving size, how many servings you should have, but
Mhm.
the information is there for the recipe. So you can make that work for you, whatever journey you're on, as well. And what was I going to say though? You were so allergens. So I mean, we've really had it all in my family. So my son for a year was on a gluten-free diet because he was having some medical issues, and we weren't sure if he might have celiac disease,
Mm.
which he didn't, thank goodness. But he went gluten-free for a year. So I was cooking vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free. Um, and so I realized, families are just struggling and juggling all these things. So I made it a point. I'm like, let me just try to make it as easy as possible for these parents. So all of my recipes have options. And I worked that dream job I was talking about. I worked with for a while. Had a dietitian on staff, and all of our recipes were allergen free. So
Mm.
I really took that kind of that training with me and brought that into my membership to all of my recipes. If there is an allergen in them, I give you an option. So if there's a soy allergy, all the big, what is it, big 7-5, I can't remember what the number
Mhm.
is, but
Mhm.
nuts, obviously there's no eggs, there's no dairy, those allergens are out of there. But nuts, soy, tahini. I know some people have the sesame seed allergy. So anyway,
Mhm.
if there's an allergen in there, I give you an option to adapt that. So I really try to make it work for you, because I say no recipe or meal plan is one size fits all. Like I
Mhm.
find it interesting, these meal plans that are out there, that it's just kind of plug and play. And for my family, that's never going to work. And I suspect that I'm not alone in that. And so I try to make it as easy as possible to adapt it. We have an ingredient substitution guide for every ingredient in every recipe. So that way you can go, oh, your child doesn't like broccoli. Here's an option to swap out the broccoli with. Or, you have a nut allergy. This is how you can make that same sauce without the cashews.
Mm.
Um, so that's kind of been my approach to making it work for all these different dietary, nutrition, allergies, anything you can name.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's great.
Do you have like a how would you say that your like the batch cooking club system sort of works, and how do you feel like you're sort of like unique in comparison to like other meal prep, you know um coaching and prepping things.
Yeah. So, okay, I feel like I have I'm biased obviously, but I feel like we're differentiated in a couple of areas. The first obviously is that it's a plant-based meal plan, but it has options for non-vegans. So,
Mm.
pretty much where you in the space right now, there's just general meal plans, right? And recipes that have meat and dairy and all and animals in them. And then there's just strictly vegetarian or plant-based ones.
Mhm.
Mine is very specific that it's plant core, like I was mentioning, but in every recipe, you have a little option for, okay, for your non-vegans, here's what you're going to do so that you
Mhm.
can accommodate everyone. I stick to my values. Here's where that compromise comes in. I stick to my values that every meal is plant core. You're never going to find a non-vegan ingredient in those recipes, but you'll have options to make it work for you. So that's, I think, the first differentiator, and
Mhm.
it's family focused. Like these are definitely recipes created with families in mind. um
Mhm.
for people that are cooking for more than one one or more than one or two. And then although you certainly could make it work for two people, but I think it's more, the recipes are usually for servings of four and more.
Mhm.
And the second differentiator, I think, is we don't just give you the recipes, we show you how to make them work for your schedule. So a little bit of like what I was
Mhm.
talking to you about before. We have a 5-step system, and then every week I go into our group and I do a little video for everybody to walk them through, to walk the members through the plan, and I do what I call my little PSA. And it's these 3 dates that I tell you to make with yourself every week to set yourself up for success, to make
Mhm.
sure that you're getting the most out of your membership. And I say, if you do these 3, set these 3 dates in your calendar and commit to them, you will be successful. You will be experience that transformative, life-changing joy of dinner, because you won't be running around scratching your head about what to make, 5 minutes before dinner has to be on the table. And those 3 dates are, one is, if you're in the membership, to download the meal plan, finalize the grocery list. We give you a grocery list,
Mhm.
just take the 30 minutes. So if you don't have the membership, you can make this work for yourself, is set aside 30 minutes to make your meal plan.
Mhm.
Then the second date is to set aside, and I say, put this in your calendar, actually calendar it like an appointment or a meeting. Your grocery shopping, set aside the
Mhm.
time to grocery shop. And then the third one is to set aside like an hour and a half to, or whatever it takes you, if you can do it in less, about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I find, is the sweet spot to do your meal prep. And
Mhm.
so we guide you through to do that. We say, okay, do those 3 things, and from there everything will fall into place. So
Mhm.
we give you this 5-step system that you start with that, then we take you through how to plug in the recipes. So like I was talking about earlier, if you only have 5 minutes to get dinner on the table, you're not going to be, making a full meal. You're going to be reheating something that you prepped on the weekend. So you need
Mhm.
to account for that when you're making that meal plan. And
Mhm.
so I talk you through how to do that so that when you get our recipes, you can plug them into the dates or the days of your week that make the most sense for your schedule, right?
Mhm.
So that's another differentiator. And then I think the third thing is, we don't just give you a prep plan and say, okay, make the sauce ahead of time, make the chili ahead of time. I actually give you a step by step in what order to get in and out of the kitchen in an efficient amount of time.
Mhm.
So you're gonna make the stew first, and while that's simmering, you're gonna make the barbecue jackfruit, and while the jackfruit's simmering, you're gonna make your hummus, whatever it is. So it's a little bit more than just, okay, here's your recipes and here's the plan. Like, there really is a lot of education in there and trying to help
Mhm.
you customize it to your life.
Yeah. I really
That's
appreciate
awesome.
the thought about how long it takes because you know I do most of the cooking in my house. It's just me and my girlfriend, but uh, she cooks every once in a while. She's a pescatarian, so she still eats eggs and ice cream and cheese and stuff like that, and fish. um so like on those days that she does that, I'm not involved, but like on the rest of the time, like the rest of the 6 days or so, I'm involved in some way, and so, but oftentimes I'm spending like 2 hours just in the kitchen, just like cooking, and this is a whole thing. And then there's sometimes leftovers, I eat a lot more than she does. So there's never leftovers for me, but for her, she's got a little bit of leftovers. So like, it's really great to, that your plan has, the times, because like, sometimes, we're trying to eat at a specific time so we can go to bed and not, have eaten right before bed and we're like all full and stuff. So we're trying to eat around like, 6 o'clock ish.
Mhm.
And like meetings go up, and like you said, meetings go up until 5:30, and then I'm just in the kitchen just like scrambling, and I'm like like everything goes in at once, like I'm just trying to do it. And so yeah, like having a little bit of like something pre-made so that I can, just put that in and be like, all right, cool, like dinner will be ready in 7 minutes. That's really good, that's really helpful. And I think that that's something that, I think meal prepping and meal planning is like the cream of the crop for that. And so yeah, that's very nice. So in so when you schedule that time, the 1 to 2 hours or whatever to make the meal bases, how do you are you able to do the entire week? And is it just the dinners that you're doing, or is it also lunches as well? And so like what's
So, and
what's
that's,
good?
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And again, I put it back to you. You can really customize that to what you want
Yeah.
to do. But for the membership, it's for the 4 dinners that we're giving you.
Mhm.
We give you 4 dinners. But I find for myself, when I do this system, I do prep some stuff for lunch. I do prep some stuff for snacks. It just depends what's going on in my week. And what I
Mm.
ask myself is, where do I need the help this week? Do I need it with breakfast? Do I have an early meeting and
Mhm.
I'm going to have to prep a smoothie bag so I can throw this, I'm not going to be able to have time to make my smoothie if I don't do that. Or
Mhm.
am I going to make a tofu scramble that I can eat on 2 days because I'm just going to need to reheat something really quick, whatever it is. Right. So I usually, it's dinner is usually always I need the help, but
Mhm.
the other things, I'm lucky I work from home, so I don't need a lot of help with lunch, except I always do usually bake a tofu, so I have some tofu that's like ready to go. And I might make a salad dressing just for bowls and salads and things for to make it easier
Mhm.
for lunch. But for me, I find I need the most help with dinner. And like I said, depending on what's going on with meetings, with lunch and breakfast, that's where I fill in. But for me, 2 hours, I can get now I've been doing this a while, so I could usually do like 6 recipes in an hour and a half. I could probably do like 8 recipes in 2 hours. Like, and I'm not just talking like, huge meals. I'm talking like, I'm making a sauce and maybe a soup and a spread, I'm marinating and doing a marinade or whatever. It's a bunch of different things that then I can then turn into a meal.
Mhm.
So it depends on your skill level and how often you've been doing this, but I think when people try this system, they find that within like 2 to 3 weeks, they're in a groove and they can start doing more in the kitchen. I mean, you can be cleaning up as you go along. So after the end of those 2 hours, you're like done, the food is made and the kitchen is clean. So I think the key is to not approach it. I think so many people approach it as like, oh, it's such a drag and it's so awful. And I mean, if you can tell, like, I'm very passionate about this. I love it. I love food. I get excited about food. I could think about food all the time. So I try to encourage people to approach it as something fun. Like, do what you need to do. If you need to have your favorite beverage and your music blasting or a podcast going or your favorite TV show going on while you're cooking, do that. Do whatever is going to make you happy. If you need to, like, when I do my meal plan, a lot of times I have a glass of wine, I've got my favorite pen out, I've got my favorite candle burning, I'm in my cozy chair. Like, I make my environment like nice, like this is me time. Like, this is thanking future Stephanie. Like, future Stephanie's going to thank me for sitting down right now, So if you can take that mindset, then you won't be like scurrying at that 6 o'clock hour throwing everything all at once because you're like so stressed out, like, oh my gosh. Instead, you're gonna open your fridge, you're going to pull out that marinated tofu, and you're going to put it in the oven and chop a salad or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just a whole different mindset that it's transformative. I mean, for lack of a better word, I keep saying that word, but it really is. It's transformative.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
it's really
really amazing.
fascinating. Yeah, no, I really like that. I think there's something to, and one can, at least I feel that I can arrive there being vegan, because that compassion and that positivity that veganism kind of, that undergirds the concept of veganism, you know, can be brought to bear much faster. You know, the idea of joy, the idea of having fun with it. You know, when you say just take the tofu out and don't make it a big deal. You know, this is not, and I can see that, where it's not supposed to be a struggle or a chore. You know, this is supposed to be part of what we're doing. It's part of life that we're doing,
Right.
and at the same time, we're not harming anything. We're not hurting any other beings while we're doing it. That in itself, you know, almost justifies the joy.
Yes.
You see what I
I
mean?
love that. Justifies the
Like
joy. That's beautiful.
you know, like we're not, we know we're not harming anything, so we can actually, you know, find joy in this. And actually, I like that concept a lot, and just that joyful part, and not making it a chore. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
What would you say for, let's a new a person just getting started into in this, and they've been vegan for maybe a little bit, but they, you know, they, it's all about time, right? You know, we just don't have time in the day to be cooking for 3 hours every single day. What's something easy that a person can do, like right now, maybe even while they're listening to the podcast or watching this video, they can do right now to help them for next week, you know, or for this week, you know,
I
in their
think,
meal prep journey.
oh, sorry.
No, yeah.
I think the easiest thing to do would be to look at your week that you're
Mm.
planning for dinner, that you want to make dinner for, and block off how much time you have to prepare that meal. That's one thing. I mean, that's what, as you're watching this right now, you could do that. You could pull out your calendar and you could say, "Oh, I want to eat at 6 and I've got a meeting until 5:30, so I've got 30 minutes." You can just block that off dinner prep time,
Mm,
and let that kind of help you figure out what you're going to plug in for dinner based on that.
mm, that's great.
It's
I like that.
planning. Like, you got to plan to eat. Like, people, it's like so simple, right? You're like, "Oh, it's so simple," but it's not so easy. But
Yeah.
if you don't plan to eat, you're not going to eat. Like, I've seen it so many times. And there's so many times where I'm like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I still have to do the meal plan for next week." And every time I make myself get to my chair and with my little cup of glass of wine, and every time I'm thanking myself. I'm
Mm,
never, it's like exercise. You never go, "God, I really wish I didn't do that workout today." Who says that? Nobody says that, right? It's the same with the meal prep. Nobody ever says, "Oh yeah, I really wish I didn't take that time to plan out what I was going to eat and prep it." And you're always happy when you do that. So it's
yeah,
just a little planning.
absolutely. What do you, so what's an example of, because you've said, you know, you start with the base, you know, for meals. What's an example of like a base for a meal?
Okay, so well, and then let me think about what's on the. I just did a plan for this next week. We've got barbecue jackfruit is one of
Mm,
a base. So you do little slide. We're doing sliders with a little slaw on that.
mm.
Another base is we have a chipotle corn chowder on the menu. So
Oh,
that's like
nice.
the meal, right? And you can, from there you can serve that with a salad. You could do a little
Mm,
DIY nacho bar and serve cups of soup with it. Like, you could have a lot of fun. Like, obviously I love food, so I could come up with all sorts of ways to serve all these recipes. Another base, we have a fava bean spread, and we're using that. You could use that in many ways, but we're using it to make pizza salad. So this is one of my favorite ways to get kids to eat more salad is I just put it on a pizza. So
mm,
you take your pita, and I like kind of interactive food at meal ideas, especially with now my kids are older, but when they were younger, I was always trying to make ways to give them control over what they were eating, to let them customize it, right? So they felt empowered to put food on their plate.
Mm.
And so pizza is kind of a good one because you can have the pitas, you have this fava bean spread that you've already made. That's your like your sauce. And then you have your salad that you can put on top. And then you can have additional toppings and whatever else you want. So that's another idea. And then we said the fava bean, the jackfruit. Oh, the last recipe, I'm just trying to remember what we're serving next week, is chickpea curry burgers. And so burgers are a great filling. You can make patties on the weekend and then don't cook them. I mean, you could cook them, but it's usually better if you just refrigerate or freeze them. So that way they're, more, they don't dry out on you. And, you could do burger salad, regular burgers, all sorts of things. So those are a couple of different ideas. And you can, change. Just because it's a burger doesn't mean you have to serve it as a burger, right? You can chop that up and crumble it in different, like there's so many different things. And if you notice, all of these ideas, they're vegan, they're plant-based, but your partner who's not vegan could take the same, you with those chickpea burgers, you saute vegetables and seasoning and put them with chickpeas and mash it up and make your chickpea burger. You could make a double batch of those vegetables and seasonings and have a separate bowl where your partner puts ground chicken in there and does their own patty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to be a part of it, but you can set yourself up for success if you want, or a lot of times I have to be honest, I'll just buy like, I'm doing a tempeh Caesar salad wraps and this week, and my kids do not like tempeh, unfortunately. So even if sometimes they'll eat tofu and think, but tempeh they don't like. So I just buy at Trader Joe's. I buy the pre-cooked chicken, and my kids or my husband takes care of that. And then I make the salad with everything else, and then they put their own chicken, and so we're eating the same thing. We're together, but I don't even have to. I don't have to smell it. I don't have to cook it. I don't have to. I have to buy it. That was a compromise we came to because unfortunately I'm the shopper, or not. I love to shop, but I'm the shopper. So that's actually a funny side note. When I was going through, I told you that tough time at the beginning, it was like I was like, I'm not going to buy any animal products. And so it was like I was making my husband going to make him go buy the animal, and with he was back then, especially, he was traveling a lot for business, and it just wasn't feasible. It wasn't compassionate, it wasn't supportive. And so anyway, long way story to say, I will buy the animal products if that's what they want for their dinner, but I don't have to cook it.
That's awesome. You know, as you helping people with their meal prep, I was wondering, what are some of the ethical concerns, about the way the food is grown or made, that you put into consideration for the folks? So like some people would get organics or something just to limit some of the harm that's actually done to animals, as we move them along towards becoming vegan at some point, hopefully, eventually. How do you navigate through that? Or do you get to tell them about that, educate them about that, to see maybe that could also dissuade them from meat products, or persuade them to do more vegan products in their meals, as opposed to, how do you go through that?
So I do, so again, I'll take a step back. I try not to tell people what they should or shouldn't do, and instead share what's working for my family. And so I do that on a weekly basis with my members. I share, this is how I'm shopping for these recipes. These are the brands. These, they're not endorsing me or anything. This is all very transparent with them. Like, nobody's paying me to tell you this. This is what works for me. I try to support my local farmers markets as much as possible, local businesses as much as possible. And, it's funny you were saying the ethical, not funny, but interesting that you mentioned that, because with the meat that I buy, I try so hard to buy kosher, because kosher is treated more humanely and it's blessed. And there's all these other things that go into being kashrut, but all that to say, it's it's hard. There's so much to navigate. I feel like I'm constantly inundated with information where you think, oh, this is okay, but now, no, that's actually not okay, because now this is happening in the world and they're exploiting this, community. And you're like, oh, so I try. So I guess, yes, all that to say, I have the intention, I stay educated and share that information as I can stay up to date as much as I can. But at the end of the day, and what I've always taught my children too, because I had to come to terms with their choice, not to go vegan or whatever it was, is I've taught them to honor and respect the food and where it's coming from. So they're not, if they're eating, this is a bad example because my kids I don't make them this, but chicken nuggets, for example, that chicken nugget came from a chicken, and the chicken came from a farm. And, same with their vegetables. A farmer worked and, on the land and harvested that. And then it went to a grocery store and it was packaged or whatever, it goes to the farmer's market. And so, especially if you have little ones, I think trying to educate them, because it actually is a good skill for all of us as humans, to be present and aware of why we do what we do. We so blindly just put food in our basket or our mouths, and to really honor and think about what is nourishing us, right? Like that energy. I'm a little woo woo in my family. They call me woo woo because I'm so big on energy. And like, I just feel that, like, if there was harm, that's another thing with like meat. Like, I don't want to cook something and put that bad energy out there. I feel like that harm, that, well, you can relate as vegan, but I think if you can set that intention and make that commitment to really be present and honor where that food is coming from, you're never going to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but at least we can have the intention, which I feel is one of the goals with veganism. Is our intention is to act with compassion. People, when they think they're like smart and funny when they hear I'm vegan, they're like, oh, so does that mean you don't eat plants because can't eat plants because you're hurting a plant when you cut the plant? Or, they take it to that level. And I have to stop and say, okay, that's so funny. But really, it actually enables me to have a larger conversation about them. Well, actually, it's about intention and compassion and taking that step back. So I think, to answer your question, I think that if you can do as much as you can on a practical level, but I do think this other intention setting is also very important in that goal too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it is easier to bring people along with love than with hate, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's very complicated. And it just so happens that when you're in a mixed dietary family situation, it's right in your face. But it is in our face everywhere we're walking all the time. Anyway, because most people that we're looking at out there in the world, they're meat eaters. So we're faced with that all the time. People that we hang out with, our friends, and so on. So we're faced with it all the time. It's just when you have it in your family, you just have it really, really close. And then and it affects all of your own decisions, where the people that we meet on the road or in our work situations, they may not necessarily have the direct impact on our decisions, but they still do indirectly. So we're still all affected by all of this. And I do agree there has to be some element of compassion that we have for people. In fact, in our restaurants, we have no negative messaging at all. And that's by design, because we get it. Most of us, 95%, 97% of our family members and our friends are non-vegans. And we love them.
Yep.
and I wouldn't want
Right.
anything to happen to them. So I get it, but I also understand, where you have people who are really staunch vegans, or even to the point of militancy, that they may feel like, no, we need to say this. And actually, that style may work for other people, but it may not necessarily work for everybody. So I get it. So I think I totally understand it. And I understand the dilemma. We are all in a dilemma. I think the dilemma is all over the place, we're all dealing with it somehow, because we know, even when I'm in my own in my own little space at home, I know I'm thinking about that industrial farm right now with those animals. I know every single second something is happening out there. So even though it's not directly, I'm not involved with it directly, I know it's happening. Mentally, I'm in a dilemma.
Yes.
So I totally get it. But I think you get it. You have a unique opportunity also, because you get to experience it right there with you and learn how to navigate. And I think that's where the uniqueness comes in, that you can really teach us. How do you navigate that when it's really right there, in front of you? So we really appreciate that understanding from you, for sure.
Thank you.
So we are running out of time, but I do want to ask one question, or I want to bring up, you said that you've got books that you've written. Do you want to tell us
Yes.
about that? Because it's like children's books, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, if you have littles, I joke, they're from age 0 to 99. Any age, but they're picture books. They're a series, Not a Nugget and Not a Purse. And they are picture books to help educate families about our animals being our friends and not our food, and Not a Nugget, and in Not a Purse, to educate kids and families that animals are our friends and not furnishings or accessories or other things that you find around the home. So yeah, they're nonfiction. I spent a lot of time researching facts about animals. The really quickly, because I know we're short on time, but I really struggled when I was starting out my platform. And again, I didn't start out to do a business. I was just trying to share information. And I was noticing I was sharing all of these recipes and encouraging and supporting people who were going vegan, but there weren't a lot. I felt like I'm not doing, it's more than just a diet, for example, too. For me, it's a lifestyle and values and everything. And I felt like I needed to help them like understand more behind it. And as I was connecting more with people, I was learning that kids are so connected, and having little ones, my kids were so connected to animals and saw them as themselves. But the older that we got, the more I worked with the parents, with the kids, it was an easier sell, right? With the parents, we become so disconnected. And so I thought, what if I could harness that power of the humanizing the animals? If I could humanize the animals and show parents and families how much we're like them, that it's a safe way to talk to kids about veganism. So that's how the books came about, is finding, like in Not a Nugget, it says, did you know that a pig can play a video game on a joystick just like you? And then there's a fact about that. And then, so it's like not a hot dog. And then it says, did you know a pig, can do this? And so it humanized one, it made them to say, wait, a pig is in my hot dog? Like what? Or whatever it is, right? A nugget is a what do you call it? A chicken. So anyway, it was a great way to humanize them. So that's how the books came about. You can get them on Amazon. Not a Nugget, Not a Purse.
That's awesome. That's really great. And I think that you're definitely right that, and I've seen it so many times with kids, you know, either trying to save the animals, or, like when they realize, oh, like I'm eating this, I don't like that. Like, they have a very like visceral reaction to the information that they are eating animals, not just, and we talked about, I talked about this with my dad before about like, when you start to separate the language that you use around like types of meat, right? Like if you're saying, well, it's a tenderloin, like it's still part of a cow, but like you're giving it a different
Yes.
name to like separate yourself what from the animal, it's the animal, and like, and that it is a living being that probably didn't want to die, and like it's so I think that that's, if kids are able to understand that at a younger age, then maybe they'll make a different decision than they would have if they had no idea, so I think
Yes.
that's very
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, it's
That's my hope.
fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating because I remember we were talking about it the other day, but in Yoruba, I'm Yoruba from Nigeria, West Africa, and Yoruba language, we don't have words for steak and bacon
Oh.
and nugget, stuff like that. We don't have that. It's just chicken or pig. So, because I think by having the actual name, then you would actually either eat it consciously because you know that that's what you're eating, or say, I don't think I want to have a pig. you can actually make probably a better choice to either do it or not do it.
Mhm.
And I think
Right.
if there's a way that we can get away from a more monetized language,
Mm.
that monetizes those beings, and make them commodities.
Mhm.
We can just go back to what they actually are. It's a pig, it's a cow, it's a chicken.
Mhm.
Right.
What it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I totally get it. I'd say it's a beautiful concept. I want to definitely get it, your books for sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
look at that. That'd be great.
Thank
Teaching
you.
people. Yeah.
So we're or we're at the end here, but I do have a couple sort of final questions that we ask everyone. So what advice would you give people who are just sort of starting out doing meal prep?
Um, what would my best advice be? If I could distill it all into one thing. I guess my best advice is to plan to eat.
Hmm,
Make a plan and set aside 30 minutes to make that plan. That would be my best advice.
awesome. What are you working on at the moment?
I'm always working on the membership, always trying to make it better. I do have a third book that in the series that I've had on like started but haven't done anything with, that's basically not a lipstick, not looking at cosmetics.
Mm.
Animals are our friends, not
Mm.
cosmetics. Um and I have a cookbook that's also on the shelf too that I'm working on. I always have a few things I'm working on, but I would say first and foremost, it's building the membership and growing
Mm.
it into something, that's big and beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And where can people find you if they?
That the easiest is just go to batchcookingclub.com and you can get links to all the different things. Yeah, that's probably the easiest.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on today and giving everybody the wisdom that you have. I mean, it's been so great. It's been so great to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having
definitely.
me. It's been great.
Yeah. And bringing
So fun.
your light, your smiles, your energy. We really appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
All right. So we just had our conversation with Stephanie Dreyer. Um, that's great. It's a great conversation. She's very, very like, the personality is very great. I mean, she's so bubbly and vibrant, and it's just so, she's really a pleasure to talk to, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Just seeing her for the first time, it was very striking to see her, the smile. Um, yeah, it's just really awesome to just see her, and you can almost feel the joy and the happiness
Yeah.
Just oozing through her,
Yeah.
you can feel that immediately. And also that sense of understanding and compassion that she has, comes through very, very much so.
Yeah.
And the non-judgmental part of her also comes through. So I was really impressed with that.
I'm assuming that, she's had to develop it over time because, having, especially that, like you said a little bit earlier in the interview, having family members who are not meat eaters that are so close to home, not just your cousins or, like your whoever, but like people that are like in your direct, like your kids, your husband, your
Right.
partner or whatever.
Right.
Like these people not being vegan, it really, you've got to sort of develop and harness compassion in order to like sort of get through, and not that she's getting through, but like, in like with the thing, but like, I feel like it's just, like she's really, I feel like she's really displaying that she's harnessed that compassion in it. And I feel like it really shines through, that
Yeah,
that
totally.
she's, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's been really interesting.
and it's also interesting too because I can see how her learning how to have that compassion, and for herself, she has to also, because I believe, as she said in the very beginning, she was much more stronger. She had a stronger feeling about this,
Right.
that you got to do this. But
Yeah.
I think over time, as things didn't just happen the way she thought they would, she had to really come to terms with how do I continue to love my family,
Right.
and I think that calls for that compassion, and that understanding, and she's learned how to make that work. And I think, and also the uniqueness of having to be so graceful, around people that are not necessarily vegans.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to do that, and then also use that to teach other people how to have such compassion. And I think in a way,
without having with having the line in the sand still drawn of
right.
where your values,
That's right.
they are not crossed, like
That's right.
she's not, she won't do everything, it's not like,
Yes.
she's going to be cooking and all the other stuff. She has
Absolutely.
that line where she says, I'm not doing anything more than this. So
yeah, but it's also interesting because, and her style and the way she's doing that with this mixed dietary families is that she's teaching them that compassion and love, so that when those non-vegans around, within the families, see those vegans actually showing love and compassion as she's spreading that, through the community, then non-vegans will actually be more inclined to move towards veganism because there's compassion and love that's actually, pulling them along. But it's fascinating. Yeah. Very, very nice to have had that chat with her.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. And she's just a great personality too.
Totally.
Really enjoyed speaking with her. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Green Carpet Interviews. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
This show was brought to you by Veg on the Edge, our vegan restaurant in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo. If you're in the area, be sure to stop by and check out our delicious plant-based dishes. Check out vegontheedge.com for more information.
To stay connected with us and learn more about conscious living, follow us on Instagram at Green Carpet Interviews. We love hearing from our listeners and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Green Carpet Interviews.